up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and today I am here to look at Bellator 297 and preview the card. In my opinion, now I probably should have done a bit more research in this, but off the top of my head, this might be the best Bellator card ever. This is an absolutely brilliant card, stacked from top to bottom, especially the top. The top is very stacked with the top two fights. You know, I think the co-main event should be the main event, if I'm being honest. That might be one of the best, the most important fights in Bellator history. The main event is absolutely exceptional too, and there's some very good people on the undercard here, and some very, very good fights on the undercard as well that I think a lot of people are probably looking forward to. I'm going to start at the very top, and I'm going to talk about the top two fights first. And you know what? I said I'll start at the very top. I'll start next to the very top because I want to talk about the co-main event between Sergio Pettis and Patricio Pitbull Freire. What a great fight this is. Now, I'll be honest, when this fight was announced, and I said it because it was one of my fights for the month again, but I'll reiterate it here. I was like, I felt a bit bad, right? It was before Patchy Mix had won the tournament, but it's like Pettis was in that tournament, he got injured, he went out of the tournament, the interim belt was put on the line. So you were supposed to have got the million plus the real championship. You got the interim belt, which is not the real belt, plus, okay, you got the million. And then you should automatically fight the champion. You know, I think we'd all agree with that. And then they're not doing that, and they're doing another fight. You know what, 3 months later we are here, 2 months later we are, whatever we are. And it's probably going to be, you know, maybe the new year before Patchy Mix ends up getting his fight. So I thought it was a little bit unfair. But once they got past that, got out in front of my giving out, I can just appreciate what this fight is and how amazing it actually is. Like, just look at the records of the two lads over the last number of years. Like, you look at Patricio first, I suppose, and he's only lost one fight since Benson Henderson in 2016. If you add that and the Daniel Strauss fight, he hasn't lost since 2013 against Pat Curran, and that was only one of two losses all the way back to 2004. An unbelievable 35-5 record. That AJ McKee fight, obviously he got it back and was able to beat him. It's the Daniel Strauss fight as well. Obviously, he fought Daniel Strauss again and beat him in the trilogy. It wasn't it? So he is a guy who is, apart from is Benson Henderson, the only one who's beaten him who hasn't beaten all the way back for a long time. Pat Curran as well. Did he beat Joe? I think Joe Warren was the last one. That is incredible. All the way back since 2010. We're talking 13 years. That is an unbelievable record. And we'll talk about his ability and how he fights in a second. But Sergio as well, he's been on an absolutely great run since he came to Bellator. He's won all 4 fights after winning against Tyson Am in his last UFC fight. But, you know, he came in, he got a bit of a good start against Alfred Kashkan, beat Ricky Bandejas, beat Juan Archuleta, and then beat Kyoji Horiguchi in one of the greatest knockouts of all time. I think for a lot of people, knockout of the year from 2021. Absolutely unbelievable, you know, in the tournament and all that. Now had injury issues, so he hasn't fought since that fight in December 2021, but you know, he's looked brilliant since he came over to Bellator. Obviously up at 135 pounds is a real benefit to him, and we'll see how much of a benefit that is, I suppose, as we get into this fight. And let's talk about that maybe first, the weight, because Patricio was the champion at 155, as we all know. Then the champion at, well, he was the champion at 145 first, wasn't he? Then 155, then back to 145. But however that worked out, champion of both those weight classes, and now he's coming down to 135. We've never seen a three-weight champion in a major organization before, or, you know, let's say the top two of our organizations before anyway. And what is the reason for that? Now, the reason for it's very hard to win 2, never mind 3. But also to go between those weights is very hard, but very hard as well if you're going from up to down, right? We saw Frankie Edgar was able to do it, you know, pretty easily. He was 155 champion, obviously fought for the title a few times and won 45, and then came down and was able to get to 135 in the end. Aldo, you know, did the same. Now he fought mostly as a 145er, obviously, but then got down to 135 as well. after having one or two at 155 very early in his career, if I'm not mistaken. But it's from the difference between 155 and 135 is big. It is really big. Now, was Patricio the biggest lightweight in the world? Not necessarily. Was he the biggest featherweight in the world? Maybe not necessarily either, but I don't think he was the smallest featherweight in the world. So I just wonder how it'll work out. Now, we're obviously, I'm a week out here, whatever it is, recording this, and we'll see on fight week, I suppose, as he turns up, as we see a few pictures, we'll see at the weigh-in, and we'll be able to maybe know a lot more then. For Sergio, I think you want to use that to your advantage. Patricio, at the best of times, isn't a massive output guy, and it's to his benefit. That's the way he fights. It's definitely not a criticism for me. It's just, I think that the fact of the matter, he doesn't throw a lot of strikes. The strikes he does throw, he makes them matter a lot. Although, in his last fight, I think that was a little bit different, or even the Boris fight maybe was a little bit different to that. But anyway, we will put it that way. If you're Sergio, I think you have to try to push that pace. And not only a pace in terms of the amount of shots you throw, I think the velocity with which you throw them too. And I'm not even talking about power, I'm literally talking about pace, the quickness. You have to be quick. All the lower, and like Sergio has fought down at 125 as well, so he's, well able to fight fast. As I said, he isn't the fastest guy either, I suppose, at 135, but he's going to be a damn sight faster than some of the guys who would be fighting 145 or 155. And I think he needs to make that tell. Even if it's not his normal game plan, I think he does need to up it a little bit and force Patricio to deal with that. Now, Sergio, Patricio first, I suppose. I mentioned a minute ago how he's a very kind of, not a huge output guy, but I love the way he fights. He's very like, Conor McGregor used the phrase before, stuck in the mud. I think if you could have a fighter who's stuck in the mud and that's a positive thing, that would be Patricio. I love the way he kind of steps into an area and like, are you going to come meet me here? And if you do, he will meet you hard. And if you don't, he will step into another area and like, are you going to meet me here? And eventually you'll have to meet him. And something is going to happen, and usually he wins that something, if you get me. I love that style. It's a very brave style. It's a style you have to be unbelievably confident to utilize as an MMA fighter, but maybe a style that he can utilize even further down the classes, because maybe he won't feel like they can trouble with him in power as much. But as we've seen in the past, people who do cut a lot of weight to get down do not have as good a chin once they get down there. So I'm sure that will be a worry as well. Sergio, on the other hand, is more of I think he's methodical would be a great word to describe Patricio. I think Sergio is a pretty methodical fighter as well. I think, I interviewed him before and I said, when do you realize you're better than Anthony? And I truly believe he is better than Anthony. I think he's a very well-rounded fighter, good wrestling, way better than Anthony at stopping the wrestling, but very good striker, a good technical striker, good jab, good combos and all of that. And as we saw in the fight against Haraguchi, he can land that big wild shot like his brother too. He has it all. He really, really does have it all. And I think it's a brilliant fight and a very interesting fight. Look, if you're to give me Patricio's ability versus Sergio's ability and ask me who do I think will win, I think Patricio will win. I think Patricio beats most guys around that weight class. He ran to pick someone a lot bigger than him. And if he can get down and look healthy at 135, I think unless there's a massive speed game, which gives a massive speed advantage from Sergio, I think he'll win. But maybe there will be. Now, having said that, and I'll mention it again, I don't think Sergio is the massive speed fighter that maybe he'd run. Like let's say if he was going down and he was fighting a Demetrius Johnson, for argument's sake, there would be more of an ability for Demetrius to do it. Now, even Demetrius himself, as we've seen recently, we saw what Dominic Cruz back in the day was hurt by a bigger fighter in terms of the ability to use the size on him and things like that. I think the biggest factor in this fight, so I said Patricio I think will win if you're to go fighter versus fighter. The biggest factor to change that, I think, will be how the weight cut affects him. If the weight cut doesn't affect him at all, then what I just said, I will stick by it. I think he will win. If it does affect him, I think it makes it a closer fight and a much different fight, right? Because, like, let's say even Patricio wins the first round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. If the weight cut hurts him and he falters in the 4th and 5th round, if it goes that far, you know, we know Sergio is not going to falter as far as the fight goes there, and he's going to be coming on to him. We know Sergio has the ability to finish a fight as well, so it becomes a very, 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 very interesting fight at that stage. And honestly, that's one of these fights. People come on here and ask me for my pick. Look, my pick is going to be Patricio, but it's one of those fights you won't know until the fight happens. It really is. It really, really is. Like Patricio, I think the betting odds, I haven't seen him up yet, but I think he will be a relatively big favourite coming in here. But like all of that, actually the odds are up. I'm just looking here, minus 200 for Patricio, plus 150. So he's not that big of a favourite. I thought he'd be bigger, but I think people probably have the same reservations that I have about the weight cut. Like, how is it going to work? We have to tune. We have to tune in Friday first of all, and then we have to tune in Saturday, I suppose, to see how it actually works out. No, Thursday and then Friday. It's on Friday night, so we'll have to tune in Thursday for the weigh-ins, and then Friday for the actual card to see how that works out. Right, let's talk about the main event: Vadim Nemkov versus Yoel Romero. Another top quality fight. I saw Yoel Romero up close and personal in Dublin. When was it? At the end of last year, September last year. I've been to a lot of sporting events in my life, and I've never seen a human move the way he moves. I've seen some greats. I've seen the likes of Joe Canning and Henry Shefflin and Kieran Carey. 99% of people won't know who they are, but I've seen them. But I've never seen someone move the way Yoel Romero moves. Just unbelievable. And like, you might say, okay, Yoel he's won his last 2 fights against Melvin Manhoef and Alex Polizzi. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. He lost 4 in a row, I suppose, 3 in the UFC and 1 to Phil Davis when he came over. So you might say, like, Yoel is 46 years of age now. Can he still do it? By God, he could do it last year. And it wasn't just, look, Melvin Manhoef was always going to be, I suppose, an easy enough matchup for him. But the way he moved suggested that he hasn't lost a step. Like, you don't move that quick if you're outside your prime. You just absolutely don't. And what Yoel needs, in my opinion, in all of Yoel's fights, is that ability to move quick. Just wait and wait and wait and pick your poison. That's what he needs to do. Now, you might be able to get away with not doing that against, say, someone like Polizzi and Manhoef. And I actually do think he's fought a little bit different since he did come over to Bellator. But when you're fighting someone like Nemkov, who is top level, as good as some of the guys who he's fought early in his career, like the Whitakers and Adesanya's, I think that's the way to fight. Fight your best fight. Fight the way that's got you the biggest wins of your career. And what's got him the biggest wins of his career is his, like, or even the best performances of his career. Even like the Adesanya one, which was a terrible fight, but he almost won the title. He waited and waited and waited and waited on that big shot and landed it. Didn't land it a few times in that fight, but in previous fights, landed it to get a big win. That's what he needs to do against Nemkov. Because if you look at Nemkov as a fighter, he's brilliant. He is brilliant. If you're tuning into this and you don't watch much Bellator and you think, oh, there's a great card and I'll watch Sean's preview. The fights that he's won over the last few years have been tremendous. He beat Corey Anderson, beat Julius Angliskas, who was a good up-and-comer at the time there a couple of years ago, beat Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, Rafael Carvalho, Phil Davis again, Liam McGarry, Philip Lins, who we saw in the UFC a couple of weeks ago, and a few more as well to add on to that. You know, very good fighter. Really good technical boxer with good wrestling, good takedown defense, and good everything. Just your typical robotic, brilliant, very hard to beat fighter. You know, he's Team Fedor, and there's a lot of, he doesn't fight like Fedor necessarily, but a lot of the lads who are Team Fedor fight this way, with obviously Fedor behind them, teaching them everything he's learned down through the years. A really, really brilliant fighter. And what does he have to do against Yoel Romero? Not get hit is the easiest thing to do. Now, that's a very hard thing to do. If you look at some of those fights, for Yoel. Like the Costa one was a weird one, kind of a standout one, and we know what can happen against Phil Davis, but there are two examples of things you can do to counteract the soldier of God, Yoel Romero. You can do what Adesanya did and really not throw much and let the cards fall how they may. Or you can do what Robert Whittaker did and throw loads and kind of not allow Yoel to get into that rhythm where he can land that one big shot. Because Yoel likes to, you see him, he kind of jumps, and boom, goes. Robert Whittaker would not allow him the space to do that. He would not allow him the rhythm to do that. So in my opinion, those are the two ways to beat Yoel Romero. One of them probably won't get you hit much, but you probably have a less of a chance of actually winning that fight. The other one, like Whittaker did, if you have the ability of Whittaker, it's a winnable fight by doing that, but you will get hit a lot as well. So it's you're robbing Peter to pay Paul in either fashion. I wouldn't step in there and do it against him. Do not worry about that. But for Nemkov, I wonder what he's going to do. And honestly, I'm unsure. I'm unsure. Like, I get a sense of what's going to happen in the main event. I might be wrong, but I get a sense of it. And we look at some of the other fights, I get a sense in them as well. But in this one, I really don't know. Like, if Nemkov comes out and tries to, like, fight Adesanya, like many people tries to fight Romero, like many people fight Romero, and jab him up and land their combinations and try to avoid the strikes, he leaves himself very open to say what happened to Chris Weidman in that fight. Now, that fight was a good few, 7 years ago now at this stage, but you get what I mean. He leaves himself open to that. Of the two options I gave you earlier, maybe the Robert Whittaker approach might work for Nemkov. Now, I think he has to switch a lot of what he does, but you're switching in a more positive route to a more rather than more negative route, which Adesanya does. Now, not to say Adesanya is negative, although he can be, but he will fight that way in lots of fights, not even if it's Romero, and I don't blame him for fighting that way against Romero at all. But for some reason, I just can't see Nemkov kind of doing that. It's a very interesting fight. Again, I talk about the top two of these. Not sure what's going to happen in either of them, or what way it will go. But with this one, at least with the other fight, if I see the weigh-in and they both look good, I think I have a general idea. I think we'll see the positively plodding Patricio. Positively plodding Patricio. That we need to make a sign for that or something. Putting it up to Pettis. Here we go. Positively plodding Patricio puts it up to Pettis. God almighty, I need to get my own like children's TV show or something with all of this. But that's what we'll see, I think. In this one, I don't know. I really, really do not know. I do not know. And that makes it really exciting. I'd probably pick Nemkov. I'd probably pick Nemkov. It felt like that whole preview was me going to pick Romero, and in the end I'm just like, no, hold on. But yeah, like the reason I saw two lads previewing a match the other day, and they said, I'm picking him just because I'm picking him. And that's kind of my reason for picking a Nemkov. Now, if we get to the betting show, actually, hold on, the betting prices here. Nemkov minus 350, Romero plus 240. Oh, we get to that betting show, I might have a different pick, but my straight up pick here is I'm going for Nemkov. Right, let's look at some of the other fights on the card. There are two big light heavyweight fights on this card, which I want to talk about. All four people ranked in the top 10. Corey Anderson versus Phil Davis and Alex Polizzi against Karl Moore. Corey Anderson, this is, I suppose, his comeback fight after losing Nemkov after no contest before that. If Nemkov wins, is he going to get straight back in there? I would doubtful, even if it's a win. You could say the same for Phil Davis, I suppose. Having lost to Nemkov a couple of fights ago, lost for the second time, but then he beat Romero 2 fights ago, so if Romero wins, he could be back in there. He's on a 2-fight win streak now at this stage. As I said, Romero, one of them, and Glick is the other one. He's won 5 of his last 6, only losing to Nemkov with Albrechtsen, McGeary and Machida also thrown in there. When Phil Davis fights, you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. He's going to make it tough for you. He's going to make it hard for you to hit him. He's going to jab from the outside, get really sweaty, and it's going to be a decision. I'll read the results of his last few fights, whether it's win or lose, right? Decision. TKO. There's 2 key TKOs in a row. Decision. KO again. Decision. KO. Submission. Decision. Lots of decisions. Okay, there's lots of decisions, and that seems to be the way it goes. Corey Anderson, I'd be interested to see how he comes back here. It feels like a long time since 2021 when he beat Ryan Bader after beating Yashimuradov coming in there. That, the tournament dragged as it really did. And it's, 3 years now since he signed with Bellator. He was on such a great run. And then, as I said, the no contest and then the Nemkov fight again, it really sent him back a little bit. But it'll only take one fight to reset him to where he was, I suppose. And if he beats Phil Davis, it absolutely will do that. And he'll be right there or thereabouts again. Now, depending on the main event, we'll see, I suppose, who will get the shot. But I think that one of them, if the other result goes the right way, might be the next in line. But let's say Anderson wins and Nemkov is still the title then, still the champion. I think you can look to Polizzi versus Moore. Polizzi now has a similar thing. He lost to Yoel Romero in his last fight. That was back in May of last year. He was on a great run before that. He'd only lost, one fight in 11 to Julius Angliskas. He was on a 3-fight win streak after losing that fight as well. And, to lose to Romero is no, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone kind of loses to Romero, I suppose, at some stage. Karl Moore then is on a great run as well. The former Cage Warriors champion. He's won his last 3 in a row. I suppose he came back from 3 years out to beat Karl Albrechtsen. I was at that fight, an absolutely brilliant fight. I thought he did really well in the first round. Then at the end of it, he almost got finished, but then he came back and got that beautiful submission in the second round. His father went absolutely insane. It was brilliant to be there to watch it. The Magic Rosansky fight, a good solid win. I think a lot of people, right, don't realise how good of a win that is because it was Rosansky's first fight in Bellator. But Rosansky, funnily enough, had fought Karl Moore's teammate Will Fleury, a fellow Irishman, outside of the UFC outside of Bellator in the middle of the pandemic, and he won that fight, did Rosansky, and I was like, oh, this is a tough fight for Karl coming in. And then Karl went in and he won that fight via unanimous decision on the Bellator 291 card. So he beat Chadwick, beat Albrechtsen, finished him, and won decision over Rosansky as well. I was very surprised he wasn't on an Irish card, but I'm not surprised at all that he got someone. I think Polizzi's ranked number 6 now, thereabouts anyway. And if Moore wins this, he'll probably be into the top 5. And if the other result goes the right way, he might be the next one in line because there's a lot of lads who've got the shot at that. So make no mistake about this. These 2 fights are really big fights when you look at what's happening in the main event. And it's smart from Bellator. I'm amazed more promotions don't actually do this and line up a couple of fights. If Corey Anderson comes out here and gets a big knockout and Yoel Romero wins, easy. That's the fight to make. If that fight is, a Phil Davis fight, let's put it that way, and maybe Phil Davis wins that fight, and Karl Moore comes out here and he absolutely topples Polizzi in a minute, well, you've an Ireland card coming up and you've another one at the start of next year. Why not put a massive title fight in Ireland? Like Karl Moore against Yoel Romero would be massive. Yoel was a massive star when he came to Ireland. Now, a bit biased towards me. I kind of want a big title fight like this in Ireland, but it would make all the sense in the world. Ireland is their best market right now, and I'm so glad they're pushing Karl Moore like this. And it's not that they're pushing him. He deserves to be pushed. He beat Karl Albrechtsen, who was ranked number 7, I think, at the time, got into the rankings himself, and has won a good fight since. He's fighting the number 6 guy in the world now. If he wins that, he deserves to be around the top 5 and he deserves to be in the title mix. So there's no problem with that at all. Interesting fights. I'm actually picking Karl Moore to win that fight. Polizzi's a tough guy and a very good guy and a heavy-handed guy. But I think if Karl can get it all together, get the jabbing and the combos going in the first round like he did in the first round against Albrechtsen, but don't end it the way I suppose he ended the first round, I think he can do a lot of work on him. Plus, his ground game, his jiu-jitsu is really, really, really good. And that could cause a bit of an issue, I think, for Polizzi. Although, he has a few submission stuff on the ground as well. He's no mug on the ground, but if Moore gets on top of him, the size that Moore is, he'll find it very hard to get him off him, I think. So, that's a very interesting fight and could be a big fight for that weight class. And the other one, then I'm gonna look. I'll be positive here, and I'll go for Corey Anderson, because I don't think many people want to see a Phil Davis winning it. That may sound bad for Phil Davis. I'm not hating on Phil Davis or anything, but God Almighty, it's just it gets a bit boring. It could be a heavyweight number one contender fight as well. Daniel James versus Gokhan Saricam. Maybe not necessarily a number one contender fight, but I suppose not too far away from it. James has been on a great run, won 5 in a row, beat Marcelo Golm last time out. I've seen Saricam fighting a couple of times live. Lost Alev Popov last time out, so, is this the most sensible matchmaking? Not too sure. Someone's getting knocked out, and I think it'll probably be Saricam. But we'll see on that one. Just to run through a few of the other fights, I suppose. Kyle Crutchmer and Bobby Nash are fighting. Obviously, Bobby has been around for a while now. 16 fights deep at 33 years of age. He fought in the UFC obviously a good few times. Fought against the likes of Kenan Song. Fought Ian Gary a while back, and Danny Robertson and Li Jingliang as well. Having made his debut all the way back, I suppose, in 2014. Won a few fights in XFC, and now comes in here to make his second Bellator debut, for his Bellator debut. We know the way he fights. He's a finisher. Of his 12 fights, 12 wins, 11 have not gone to a decision. Only one has gone to a decision. Only one of his 4 losses as well. So, Crutchmer on the other hand, obviously we know him a very good wrestler. 3 submission wins, 5 decisions. He will take you down and he will hurt you on the ground, as a lot of the AKA lads tend to do. Lost last time out to Jaleel Willis, who was on a 3-5 win streak before that. I think I will be going with Kyle Crutchmer in that one. Gadzhi Rabzabov then is fighting Pieter Buist. I like Rabzabov in that one. I pick Karl Moore on that one with no Irish bias whatsoever. But there's some of the I suppose some of the up-and-comers on the card as well. Kevin Childs and Vladimir Kuev, with only 3 fights between them. Archie Colgan, he's getting a big step up against Emmanuel Sanchez, one of the most exciting fighters in the world, training out at Genesis Academy. Beat Jacob Montalvo last time out, with 3-0 now in the promotion. And Emmanuel Sanchez, he's been around since God was a boy, only 32 years of age. How in God's name is he 32 years of age only, fighting since 2011? What if it's weird. If you were to ask me what kind of a run Emmanuel Sanchez is on, I'd say, geez, he's on a great run. He's actually lost his last 4 fights in a row, which is kind of amazing to me. Like Medeiros, Kennedy, Burnell, and Freire. But look at that. Look at the level he's fighting there. Colgan is very good, but this is a big step up. I'm gonna go with Sanchez. I'm gonna go for the old dog. I'm gonna go for Sanchez, and let's see how that goes. Mike Hamel been on a good run again against Shamil and Nikaev. And there's 2 other fights I want to talk about, and I leave them to last. Jordan Newman, really good prospect, 5-0. Cody Law, good prospect as well, 6-2, looking bounce back here. And then there's Max Metzger in the opener fight against 0-3, David McKinney. Mike Hamel on a good run. He's fighting Shamil, Khizriev as well, if I didn't, and Nikaev, if I didn't mention that. But 2 of the best fights on this card for different reasons are Norbert Navinia Jr. against Kamil Onishuk and Timur Khizriev against Richie Smullen. First of all, let's just briefly mention Khizriev, 12-0, fighting out of Makhachkala, Dagestan. Beat Daniel Weichel last time out. He's highly ranked now, and that was his first fight in the promotion. He'd been fighting in EFC and AMC and other places before that, just beating everyone kind of from pillar to post. Lots of decision wins. A very good wrestler, very good on the ground, as you'd expected. But Richie Smullen, what a run he has been on over the last while. He beat Petr Nijelski, who came into the promotion, and everyone was like, well, this guy is going to be the next big thing. And he beat him in that fight over in Ireland. He was the 2-way champion over in Ukraine before that, amazingly. What a run he went on there. He beaten Harry Hardwick, who is probably, maybe the number 1 contender now at featherweight over in Cage Warriors. and, you know, before his first stint in Bellator. He's a draw with Richie Smullen, with Rhys McKee as well, who's the champion at the moment at welterweight over in Cage Warriors. So Richie Smullen has been around for a long time, and I'll tell you what. Look, Khizriev is going to come into this as a big favourite, and if you're asking my pick, I'll take my Irish bias out of it and I'll have to pick Khizriev. But God almighty, if there's an underdog to go in there and give him hell, it's Richie Smullen, because he's good wrestling, he's good takedown defense, he's unbelievable jiu-jitsu, he's the ability to finish lads. You know, if you take away the last fight, 3 in a row finishes before that, all in 2 in the second round, 1 in the first round, find some good guys as well. I think that's going to be a right battle. And if you're looking for a right battle to watch, I think that will be one. The fight I don't think will be a right battle, though, is that aforementioned Norbert Navinyi Jr. fight against Kamil Onishuk. I spoke to Norbert for over in Severe in May last week, and he was in good form, but just on Kamil first, I suppose. He's your good technical stand-up fighter who can, and what I mean, he fights technically in the stand-up, he can fight, he's a well-rounded fighter, he can fight everywhere, good power, all of that, very good fighter. In my opinion, Norbert Navinyi Jr. is the best prospect in MMA. I think he's phenomenal. His father is an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. He was also, I believe, a 2-time world champion kickboxer. And Norbert Navinyi is fighting out of the same camp as MVP. His wrestling is brilliant. His striking is absolutely brilliant. I was talking to MVP about him as well, and he said this guy is different level, basically. And he's one of those guys that I don't think a lot of people know about, but they will soon. In my opinion, he's going to be a champion within the next year, 18 months. And this is a fight I'd definitely be watching out for and definitely be keeping an eye on him. He's a top level fighter. Very good fighter. And I'm picking him to win. All right, we will leave it there. That is all the fights. It's a brilliant card. I absolutely cannot wait for it. Fantastic card this Friday night from Bellator. Fair play to them. They're obviously going to give out about them, but I'm praising them this week, so fair play to you. And I will leave it there. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.